By a show of hands, who is away for Christmas? Who's just making their way back after Christmas? Hold up your hands, hold up your hands. So welcome back to everyone that was away. I hope you had a nice Christmas. Here, it was very quiet on the university, but our faithful, we had a beautiful Christmas here, but once again, it was very quiet but festive. There was moments of grace, reflecting on God's love. Just thinking back at Christmas, what are some graces that you received this Christmas time? Was it sharing with family or friends? Maybe some time just to rest? Maybe some home-cooked food? Of course, we had our Arizona football team score a victory at the Alamo Bowl. Bear down. What are some moments of grace that you experience? Moments of grace of God's love, beauty, truth. And perhaps as you reflect on Christmas, maybe you had some struggles, some suffering. Some got sick over the break. Some missed loved ones. Some missed the way it was. You're invited to even reflect on the struggles that you've had. At Christmas, we unite our graces and our struggles with the Holy Family. Joseph, Mary, and Jesus knew about grace and struggle. Of course, Christmas started when there was no shelter in the inn, so they had to stay with the mangy animals in a manger, a cave out in the cold. But the warmth of their love turned that unhoused condition into the warm, inviting creche that we see before us. 800 years ago, St. Francis started the tradition of showing the suffering of the Holy Family, but seeing sacredness in the suffering and poverty that we see in the creche. God gives grace and blessing even in struggles. Nay, I'd say especially in struggles, God gives grace. So as we're coming back to campus, ready for a new year, ready for work opportunities, but also maybe burdens, as we're ready to start a new semester, are you ready or reluctant for this new year? Ready or reluctant? Whether or not, the good news is that the graces of Christmas are not done. Today is Epiphany. I call it Christmas comes to college. We bring that grace back into the campus, into everyone returning in our community. Epiphany. For the Eastern Church, this is the main feast day of Christmas. For the Latin American church, Epiphania is when the gifts are exchanged, because the three kings come bearing royal gifts. Now, to be certain, Epiphany is different from Christmas nativity. Nativity is the birth of Jesus on that silent night, that holy night. In a manger, some shepherds came to adore the birth of the Lord. They came in the dark and the cold of the night. And so maybe just like our Christmas experiences with things kind of quiet and slow, now Epiphany is the light of Christ come full blast into the warmth of the noonday sun. As the prophet Isaiah said, "Rise up in splendor, Jerusalem, your light has come. The glory of the Lord shines upon you, and nations shall walk by your light, and kings by your shining radiance." Epiphany is the light of Christ manifested to others, to the nations. And the light of Christ, theologically, is God's love and God's truth. And that light and love has to be made manifest. That means to be revealed, to be shared. And to the nations, that means to everyone. The three kings are a symbol of everyone coming to God, to that light, to that love, to that truth. The Magi, we call them the three kings, but the term in the Bible is Magi. It could be translated as magicians. But one Catholic writer, G.K. Chesterton, says they're probably described more likely philosophers, those seeking the truth of things, those seeking they're paying attention to the world. They're paying attention to the stars, to the sun, and they're coming understanding how the world works, and they're coming seeking the truth. The Magi came from eastern lands, And they're represented as actually coming from disparate lands. The truth that tradition holds, wisely remember that they're almost unknown quantities, as mysterious and melodious as their names, Melchior, Caspar, Balthazar. They are named three, but they could have been more. They are thought to come from the races of men at the times, from the Ethiopians, just like the Queen of Sheba who came to Solomon seeking wisdom. They came from Babylon, the cradle of civilization. They came from Medes. And nevertheless, these magi, 3 or more score, came with all of them the world of wisdom that had watched the stars in Chaldea, the sun in Persia. And we shall not be wrong if we see in them the same curiosity that moves all the sages and seekers in all places of the world in all centuries. In other words, the searching of the Magi is a searching of the human condition. Whether you walk through the medical school and you see, we ask the big questions, we're searching for the answers. You think of political science and philosophy department, searching for better ways to have peace in our world. Or engineering and science, trying to solve the difficulty of the world with solutions. People searching for the truth. This is what the Magi represent. And such learned ones from the east came, and they found themselves confirmed in much that was true in their own tradition and right in their own reasoning. The Dominican theologian St. Thomas Aquinas in the 1200s said, for Catholic theologians, Catholic philosophers, Catholic seekers, we can find truth in all things, in all people, in all times. It doesn't matter where the truth comes from. It's a task to listen to the questions and wisdom proposed by each person and culture and seek the truth with others that are seeking for the truth. And so for our job in a university community is to recognize people searching for the truth here and us sharing along with them in that search, to listen then to others. Now, as we are kicking off this year, first of all, our students are gathering, our student ministers, they're going away for a few days of retreat, kind of formation retreat, preparing to lead the rest of the year. But they're doing that to be leading the rest of the student community. We have our torch team that's sharing Bible studies and sharing. We also prepared ourselves. We went to a conference this week called Seek and just received that light and the power of Christ. On that Seek, there was powerful prayer experiences. There's 20,000 college students around the country, and Mexico, and Ireland came. Everyone, 20,000 students coming in those big prayer times. But then during the day, there was like breakout sessions, and you have this, and people just chose, and sometimes it was chaos. We tried to meet, but with 20,000 people, you can't get through. There was one talk. I was kind of drawn to it, is how do we bring the truth of our Catholic teachings to those that are struggling with gender identity? And I ended up going to there, and I saw a few people from our Arizona group. I was like, oh, I'll sit here. Turned out the entire 45 people from Arizona were all at the same talk. And with 1,000 people, we're all in the same row. We were looking down like, you're here too, you're here. But what I took away to sharing with those who are struggling with gender identity, the speaker on there said a beautiful thing. Our job is, when people are struggling, is listen to their identity. Listen to what they're struggling with. They said, have a reverential listening. Have a reverence to their struggle. Listen deeply, deeply. It's that's our attitude for everything, whether it be in the sciences, whether it be colleagues that we work with, family or friends, probably the hardest to listen to have a reverential listening to others. And so in that search, we are called to be listening with others, listening with that reverential, loving to the search of others. And I would call those in our university community also the Magi, those looking for the truth of things. Those Magi in Jesus' time, they came and they experienced the cure for the diseases of the world. They came and they discovered the secret for world peace. They came and found the truth that sets them free. And what did they find? The little baby Jesus with his mother Mary and Joseph in the crèche. The magi of our day, those in academia, may or may not come to church. Some of you are here. Some of you, they may or may not come to church, come and see the crèche or the tabernacle containing the Eucharist, the presence of Jesus Christ. They may or may not come to Mass, the place where we continue Christ's Mass. Christmas continues every Sunday. We receive that same grace at this altar. And daily, every 5:15, we have that same Mass during the academic year. The Magi of the university may or may not seek out this grace of Christ, but they are invited to receive the light of Christ on campus. The Magi searched out and found in the star that led them to the truth. The Magi of today need to see that star shining before others. God puts that light into one another. That's the gift of our baptism. We're called to reveal that truth in our fields of expertise. Wherever you're working, your baptism gives you authority of Jesus, priest, prophet, and king. To be a servant leader, to be a king or queen, to also be making decisions. You can help people in your fields of study, in your workplace. And you can have that light of faith in God's love as you share that truth. And it's very much possible. I'll share an example of myself when I was in graduate school, and also share an example of an undergraduate student. When I was in graduate school, I went to the University of Washington, and I knew it was a struggle. The faith there is really persecuted. But I was like, that'll be good. It'll make me really stand for my faith. So I really searched out support. And I found a professor. I just had a sense. He was from Eastern Europe. I had a sense, I think he's a Christian man. I think has a good faith. I could just tell by meeting him. And sure enough, he wasn't Catholic, but he was an Eastern Rite, some kind of Eastern, let's say, Orthodox. We didn't talk about it on a public university, but I could just tell. And in fact, around this time of year, he'd have a nice fancy dinner for all his graduate students. And he said, this is because of Epiphany. That's why I take you guys out, to share this nice meal. So I was very content with my professor. So we were studying his optics, and he was top-notch in this field. But then, this is after 9/11, our university got bought out, millions of dollars to use our optical sensors for other stuff. And my professor left the university. He's like, this is not research anymore. We've been corrupted. And my new professor came in, this guy from the Pacific Northwest. He was an avowed atheist, and he would always kind of be blasting the church and God and all this. And I was like, you should come to my Newman Center and kind of meet some of the Dominican priests there. They're wonderful. They're not what you think. He's like, oh, the Dominicans, those guys that started the Inquisition. He had all the answers for everything. I was very intimidated by him. In fact, I thought it was a sign that I'm supposed to drop out of this university. I'm out of this program. I'm going to drop out. I'm going to enter religious life. I felt God calling me already. My spiritual director is like, can't you just finish this year? You get your master's and then kind of go gracefully. And so with that encouragement, and then I would also be listening, coming to church and having talks, gave me confidence. And one thing that gave me confidence, engaging my professor, said I heard someone say, it's like, if someone's an atheist, a good response is, tell me about the God you don't believe in. Chances are we don't believe in that God as well. Actually explore. Don't just hear the labels, and actually explore. Go deeper. And so I started conversations with my atheist professor. My inroads was actually talking about his kids. I was like, what do your kids believe? I just heard we have an innate desire for God. He was like, it's so weird. I don't know where they're coming up with this idea, like to try and desire God. But my real inroad with my professor, he started talking about playing bass guitar. I was like, oh, I play the bass guitar as well. What kind of music do you like to play? He said, I like funk music. I was like, funk music? Why funk music? That was just my question, asking questions. He said, I love funk music because you can't be sad while you play funk music, and everyone loves it. It brings up, everyone's joyful playing funk. And so I took that little inroads to seeking joy to have deeper conversations. I can't say he ever came to the church or took any steps, but it opened him in faith. I can tell about an undergraduate student that was a lot more successful than I was. And she was in computer science. She was very successful at coding. And so one of her professors wanted to talk to her about possibilities on some research and summer internships that you could do. And she said she was really impressed by this professor. And it's like, I really want him to take some steps in his faith. There's something good about him. She said, I've been praying for him a lot. She was very strategic when I was reflecting on her that experience. And the professor asked can you come talk to me about some possibilities in your studies? Can you show up at like 10 o'clock? She's like, at 10 o'clock I'm busy. I pray every morning at my church. He's like, you pray at church? What? Why? What's that like? And she said, we have morning prayer every morning and then time of adoration, just sitting in the presence of God. And that time helps me deal. She's like, I have terrible anxiety. I've been in the hospital because of it. But that time of prayer helps me be at peace, and I think clearer, and I'm able to be successful because of that time of prayer. The professor was so impressed. He's like, really? You've gone through that, and that happens at church? You should take me some time. And in fact, that student led that professor to come witness the church and to come into an RCA program like this because of that witness. So we have an opportunity by sharing the light of Christ, receiving that light ourselves, just like that student, allowing the light and the love of Christ to heal her, to fill her. And then as she shares with others, talking about the truth of their fields and allowing that to reflect out, and it's attractive. That light is attractive to others. That's our invitation at a university community to fill with that light and love and share that light with others to attract them. Christmas comes to college, but it comes through you.